Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense, and I have a Bitcoin/cryptocurrency market update for Sunday, December the 27th. Before I jump into the content for this video, please do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and of course don't forget to check the description for links where you can support the channel to keep these videos coming. In 2021, I don't plan on doing near as many videos. I've talked about this in the past, but it's very time consuming and it's very easy to miss trades. So I'm going to prioritize my time at my desk for trading versus doing videos. But if you want more access to more frequent updates, you can join the Patreon. I've been posting daily in there, not videos, but charts and explanation of those charts and so on and so forth. So let's take a quick look at the market. I wasn't really planning on doing a video this week, but I've got a couple of requests. So I figured I would sit down and shoot this video and talk about what's happening. So first things first, this pump was, I don't even know what the word I want to use is, because the thing is I think most people at this point realize the market is manipulated, but essentially what we saw this weekend was we saw the major markets close for the holiday, for Christmas. So we had basically a three-day weekend where there was no trading on Friday, there was no trading on Saturday, and then there was no trading most of the day on Sunday. And of course, major markets will reopen in a few hours, at least futures markets. And in that time, suddenly we had this magical, what was it? $4,000 or $5,000 pump on Bitcoin, washed out tons and tons of shorts. In fact, I'm looking at the data on my second window here, and it looks like in the last few days they washed out in the neighborhood of 800 million or so in shorts. So basically one giant stop hunt that pushed the price all the way up over $28,000, $28,387 on Coinbase. I find it utterly ridiculous. That's the bad news. The good news is I did sell some more of my spot. I didn't have a whole lot of spot left, but I did part with a little bit more of my spot. More specifically, I hedged that spot, so I opened up a short position so I didn't have to realize capital gains on the spot itself. But I am short hedged right now, meaning I do have a short position open to offset some of the little bit of spot that I'm holding. As far as opening any shorts, I'm not really rushing into short positions on this thing. There were short setups today. Some of them happened overnight. There's been a lot of activity during the Asian trading sessions while I've been sleeping. And overall, the market is just went full on blow off top. Just call it scam mode, call it whatever you want. I don't care what the term is you use, but it's went vertical, okay? And there's actually a parabola that started back in March. Let's turn off RSI for a second. And I'm just going to quickly draw a curve here, but it looks something like that. You've got this parabola, and the ends of parabolas tend to go vertical, and then they break that parabola, and by textbook definition, they tend to retrace 80%. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous. So, who knows what's going to happen? All I know is what the chart is saying. Most of the year, I was pretty bearish because of the COVID-19, and even though I wasn't sitting in a short or getting, overly zealous, sitting in short after short after short, I was taking some longs and some shorts. I was definitely bearish on the macro level. I'm still bearish on the macro level. It was COVID-19 that made me bearish most of the year, but I don't care about COVID-19. The mistake that I made was getting away from technical analysis and worrying about fundamentals. Fundamentals are bullshit, right? They're all priced into the chart anyway. So COVID-19 was already priced into the chart. Just like COVID-19 didn't cause the crash last year, I was able to call the crash before COVID-19 even existed. COVID-19 didn't cause this pump this year, right? It was just noise and clickbait for these news outlets. And COVID-19 is very real. I have friends who have had COVID-19 and have had serious health issues because of it. I had a family member of my wife's who ended up in a coma for 4 weeks. So I'm not saying COVID's not real, but I'm saying, the media hooked onto it and blew it out of proportion. More people die every year from tobacco than COVID. But we don't, seem to care about tobacco smokers. But when you look at the technical analysis in this chart, we do have to take into consideration that we have now pumped over 600% without a meaningful correction. This is the first time in Bitcoin's history that it's went this long without correcting. That's a little bit startling. We have to take into consideration that, you know, if it does break this parabola, which is no longer sustainable, textbook technical analysis suggests that it could retrace as much as 80%, which would put it back down around $8,700. We have to take into consideration that we have a bearish crab that is forming. This is one of the scenarios that I put forth in my Discord, and when I put this forth, we were down around 18, 20K, and I said, I seriously doubt this is what happens, but this is my concern that this is what this market is going to do. And if somebody had said, James, put odds on it, what are the odds it happens? I would have said like 1% that we put in a bearish crab, but here we are. Bearish crab pattern looks like this. You basically have your initial move down from X to A, then you have a retracement up around the 61.8, then you have a retracement from B to C down around the 88 level. In our case, we got down to about 93, and then you have a pump that pumps up near the 1.618 level, which is up around 30K actually. And this pump, this from C to D pump, there's a couple of rules it needs to follow. Number one, it needs to be close to the 1.618, which it is. And number two, it needs to be between, I believe it's low twos. I think it might be 1.618 all the way up to 3.618 on this move here. And you can see that we're sitting right up around the 2.4. So it's following the rules. And then what happens with this, this bearish crab pattern is, of course, everybody's now super bullish and they're looking for all-time highs, which we're already at all-time highs, but they're looking for more upside, right? They're euphoric, yada, 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 yada. And you can get a retracement. If it ends up being a legit bull market, a retracement could go anywhere from the A to the B, which is anywhere from around 3,000 all the way up to around 14,000. Some people also like to simply use an 88% retracement from A to D, but you would put it down around 6,000. Now I know that on the surface these numbers sound insane and they may not hit. We don't have any way of knowing if they're going to hit or not, but they're certainly not insane. They're not magical numbers that don't make sense. These are legitimate textbook technical analysis targets if this starts to move down. There are a couple of days left in the month, also a couple of days left in the year. There's some big news about Grayscale. Apparently their people can start selling their Bitcoin on the 29th. A lot of people tend to think that they probably are going to start unloading that. That could start to fuel the move down. We are getting a fairly big wick, right, on this monthly candle, but it can pump up and reabsorb that wick. So we have to wait and see where the month actually closes at. This wick back in 2017 was a much larger wick. And then this wick we're seeing right now is, you know, similar to this wick back in the summer of 2019. So some topping looking signals, but you know, it remains to be seen. The other thing that I notice about this weekly chart is if we take a look at RSI, RSI is sitting up at all-time high levels on Coinbase. You can see here that it's just straight across there. The last two times it got there, the only two times it's ever got there in Coinbase, one time was in the summer of 2017, which we had a 61.8% correction right after that, meaning we corrected back down to the golden pocket. If we correct to the golden pocket of this move is so large now that the golden pocket is down around 13,000, which would make sense because it's down around that old summer of 2019 high. So that's potential, you know, it makes sense. The second time it hit that level was, of course, in the top of 2017, which would be pretty bad. I tend to lean toward this being more like December of 2017 than the summer of 2017. And simply because we had the same parabolic type of movement that we had in that bubble then, in the bubble in the summer of 2019, and now we have the same parabolic movement in 2020. I just don't feel comfortable with that type of market behavior. It's very, very nasty market behavior. If we take this and we put Bollinger Bands on here, which I do not trade, but once in a while I'll throw them on there just to kind of see what they look like. And we're going to see some startling similarities, again, to that December of 2019 pump right here. This is when the bands completely opened up. As a friend of mine once said, you know, that's when the alligator opened his mouth. and that's when you want to really watch out. And then of course price collapsed 84%. It started to open up here, and again price collapsed about 74%. And now if you look, this alligator's mouth is just wide open. All right, so if we do get like an 80% pullback, you know, it wouldn't be that shocking. Now, a couple of other things to keep an eye on. This is a weekly chart. If we put a volume profile on this chart and we look at the volume from March of 2020 up until the current time, we're going to get a volume profile that shows us some really, really bad news, and that is all of this open air. Absolutely no support was built on this pump because it went straight up. So it's likely to fall just as fast as it rose, or even faster. As they say, markets take the stairs up and the elevator down. The point of control on Coinbase happens to be down around $9,400, with a fairly large gap sitting down around $6,800. Okay, let's turn off the volume profile and let's take a look at our liquidity gaps. We have a liquidity gap sitting down here around $7,800. We have a liquidity gap sitting right here around $9,300. We have liquidity gap sitting down here around 11.7 thousand. We have one, that one got filled. We have another one right here that around 19,000. We have this one that we just created, right? All these gaps. Now, some people say, James, those are breakaway gaps. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but we do have gaps on that chart. So the next thing I would say is let's go look at the CME chart. So this is the CME chart. You may not remember this because it's been 3 days now. The CME actually closed last week at 23,685. So it pumped about $5,000 after the CME opened. So if they don't take it back down to that level, we're going to have a massive $2,000 or $3,000 gap, which is the biggest gap in CME history on Bitcoin. All right. So, you know, I don't know why anybody is buying up here, but I didn't know anybody was buying at 20K, and turned out that that wasn't a bad decision at all, as long as they're, you know, locking in their profits. If we take a look though, what I wanted to show you on this volume profile that's, you know, very telling. Back to last year in 2019, everybody was talking about this $8,500 gap. And then after a couple months, people were like, oh, that gap's going to be a meme. It's never going to fill, blah, 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 blah. And when people gave up on that gap filling, that's when it finally came down and filled in that gap. We had this $9,600 gap back here, and this was the gap where a lot of the bulls were saying, hey, we're going to go in and fill in that gap and then go higher. And it was odd because there I was saying, look, I think 9,800 is probably the local bottom. We're probably not filling that gap in. We're probably going up first and then filling it in. And we went much higher than I anticipated. I thought the pump would go to 11.1K, and then I thought it would dump, which is what it did. It went to 11.1K and then dumped, but then instead of dumping down further, it stopped and did this. Well, if I can get my chart to work. So I called all this, said this was a local top, or I thought it was. I said I thought we would bounce from 9,800 up to around 11.1. We did. And then I thought we would do this. Where I got it wrong was we turned the corner and just started going up again, which was really weird. It's not what I expected to happen. But that gap is there and no one's talking about it anymore. Now here's the shocking thing about that gap. Let's put a volume profile on there. Ooh, do you see where the point of control is on the CME? Literally inside of that gap. So does that guarantee that gap gets filled? Of course not. No gap is guaranteed to fill. There's no such thing as a guarantee in trading. But same thing on the CME, we have all open air all the way down to about 12K. Then we have a really strong support, volume support from 12K all the way down to about 10K or even 9,500 or so, right? Maybe even 8,500, I would say. This is pretty strong too. So we have a really strong, like, Great Wall of China sitting here. If it were to get through that, then we've got this massive gap right here that, you know, more than often than not likes to get filled in, right? And that's down around 7,500 bucks. Now these targets, they sound insane, I know, but it's just technical analysis. There's no guarantee that they hit, right? Just like in 2019 when we were sitting at 13 and 14K or 13.8K, and I was saying, I think this is going to go down to 4K. It did sound absurd, but In the end, that's exactly what happened when we went down to 4K. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. I just think that Bitcoin went too far too fast. I'm not a believer in Bitcoin, but that's not influencing my decision making as far as what I'm talking about with technical analysis. I'm just going by what the charts say. All right. I watched the spoofing happening over these last several months. I watched the spoofing happening all weekend. It's just been a very eye-opening experience, and it's really jaded me when it comes to cryptocurrency because I always knew there was a lot of manipulation in the market, but I didn't know it was on the level that it's actually on. Right? It's so much worse than what I thought. There's a ton of wash trading going on where the exchanges are buying and selling from themselves, or at least that's my guess. It may be another party doing it on the exchanges. There's tons of spoofing, so when the price starts to drop, they're going to push it where they want it to go. I talked about this in my Facebook group. I posted charts about this. I showed them. I called on the 24th. I posted a chart. I think I posted in Patreon as well, saying this is how manipulation works. This is what they're going to do. And then literally the next day they did it. Right. All right. So this was back on Christmas Eve, and I explained that the way the manipulation works is they put in these huge sell walls. They'll basically trick retail into shorting, and then they'll pull the sell wall down. And when they do, then they send the price up to liquidate those shorts. So what happened, just 11 hours, or I don't know when this was, but it says 11 hours ago when I took the screenshot. It was probably late on the 24th, maybe it was even Christmas. I had posted saying, hey, they took down the sell walls. Now, I had just explained in this post what happened when they took those sell walls down, that it would pump up. They took the sell walls down. Here's a zoomed in shot. Here's the sell wall. They took it down. They dumped price a little bit first to wash out longs, to trap bears, and they pushed it right up to the next sell wall. And that's what they do. It's just a game to them. It's a manipulation game where they're hunting stops. So it definitely has left me with a pretty sour taste when it comes to cryptocurrency. And the funny thing is, like somebody in my Discord mentioned, people have labeled altcoins shitcoins, but the altcoins are actually less manipulated than Bitcoin. If you go look at the altcoins, most of them are moving with very textbook technical analysis. They're not doing this top hunt stuff. You're not seeing, like on Bitcoin, you can really see this when you zoom in, right? When the spoofers go into full, like when they go crazy, you start seeing stuff like this, where it just goes up, just green candle after green candle after green candle after green candle, right? And you'll see these tails and wicks because it starts to try to drop, and then they spoof it up. They just keep doing that. You go look at a normal market, you're very rarely going to see something like that. Or even if you look at like an altcoin, like go look at Litecoin, you're not going to see that same thing. See Litecoin? You're not seeing just tons of green candles. You're seeing green and red because there's buyers and sellers. It's not as spoofed up as what Bitcoin is, right? And these altcoins, they've been honestly easier to trade over the last couple of years than Bitcoin has. If you look at Litecoin and its run up here, if you had bought Litecoin back in March, which I'm not saying you would or wouldn't have, but if you had, right, and you waited, or let's just say you didn't buy that here and you just waited for a nice retracement, it did have a retracement. It did have a correction. Bitcoin didn't, because when Bitcoin started to come back down, back here when I called the local top and I was waiting for a retracement to the 61.8, they started spoofing it back up, right? So it dropped. I thought, hey, we'll get a bounce to around 11K probably, and then we'll go down. We started to go down and they spoofed it up. Well, they didn't do it to the altcoins, right? And the altcoins did exactly what Bitcoin, quote unquote, should have done. So Litecoin ran from March through August, and then it had a perfect 61.8% retracement, which is a buy signal in an uptrend, right? And then it pumped, and it pumped really big. I don't know exactly how much, but it pumped 234% from its correction. It had a correction. Bitcoin didn't. This is where the spoofers came in and started spoofing Bitcoin up, right? Or you go look at Ethereum. I don't know if Ethereum did the same thing. We'll just look together. So Ethereum bottomed out. It pumped. Where's August? There's August right there. And it had a retracement. It didn't retrace to the 61.8, right? But it did retrace down to its 38.2 and then put in a double bottom. Bam, 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 bam. Double bottom on a 38.2 and a strong uptrend. Again, that's a buy signal. We didn't see that in Bitcoin. We didn't see 38.2 retracements. We didn't see 50%. We didn't see 61.8 on the larger corrective moves, right? The other thing that Ethereum and a lot of these altcoins did was they did put in double bottoms on a larger time frame. Down, bottom, up for a neckline, down, a retest of the bottom, that's a double bottom, and up, right? If you go look at Bitcoin, go look at an old Bitcoin chart. Look at its last market cycle and look what it did. Watch this. Down, up, retest of the low, there's your double bottom, and up you go, right? This year has been the most manipulated that Bitcoin has ever been, and it's why a lot of people missed getting into the market at the right time, myself included. I didn't load up on spot. I was just trading it, trading the moves, right? But you go look at those altcoins and they had those really beautiful double bottoms, and then you have Bitcoin and it just had, like, let's go back to August, right? Put your fibs on there from the bottom to that 12K top. And right here is where a lot of those alts were traced under the 38.2s or their 61.8s. But Bitcoin just got spoofed up. All right. So I do believe that Bitcoin will correct. I believe that the game was to push it as high as they could to try to trap people. They needed retail to come in. They needed retail to start buying Bitcoin and FOMOing in, because if they wanted to sell their Bitcoin or wanted to unload their bags, you have to have enough liquidity underneath you in order to sell. And I think that was the whole aim of this pump was, let's get enough people FOMOing in that we can sell ours and distribute. And now I do think we'll have a move down. Now, whether it's a crash, whether this is really bad on a macro level or it goes way, 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 way down, or whether this is just a correction, I really think we have to wait and see. I know that me personally, I'm not excited about buying Bitcoin anymore. I don't have any, I don't have a horse in the race, because the reality is this: I'm holding crypto, I'm holding, that hedge fund, hodl fund, whatever you want to call it. So I have that. So if it goes down, I'm going to actually lose money on that, which sucks. And in the past, I didn't mind it going down because I thought, well, as long as Bitcoin is legit, I'll just buy more, I'll cost average it, and long term it'll work out great. Well, I don't have any intentions of buying more Bitcoin, because at this point, I'm convinced that Bitcoin is a scam. I'm convinced that Bitcoin is a Ponzi, where they're just simply moving the market around like a casino to take as much money from traders as they can. So I don't want to buy more Bitcoin. So there's no positive to this going down for me, right? I'm not going to try to short it on the way down, because they're going to scam pump it. They're not going to let it trend down. They're going to, it'll go down some. Then I'll have big pumps to wash out shorts and things like that. So I'll trade it on scalps just the way I would any market. So there's no positive there. I don't want to buy more of it. So buying it cheaper is not a positive. It's just a huge negative, because I'm holding some of it, right? And I did hedge some of my spot last night, but most of my portfolio is in altcoins, and I'm not going to try to go up and open 25 different hedges. I'll just ride it wherever it goes. So, I don't have an objective or like a reason to be bearish. Like, I don't get personal gain out of it. I just think the market is a horribly, horribly manipulated market, right? I just don't know what else to say about it. And that's one of the reasons I'm going to stop doing so many videos, because either people know it's manipulated and they believe it's manipulated and they don't need me to tell them it's manipulated, or they are hardcore Bitcoin Kool-Aid drinkers, crypto Kool-Aid drinkers, and they may be right, who knows, and they just don't want to hear it. So why do videos telling people that either stuff A, they already know, or B, stuff they don't want to hear, right? It's like going to McDonald's and trying to tell the fat guy, hey, you should get a salad. He's not there to get a salad, he's there to get a burger, right? And I'm fat, so I get to say that. But it's just it's a market that you can make a lot of money trading, and I think it's great if you want to trade it. I think that you can apply rules and do very well trading it. I would just be very, very cautious about drinking the crypto Kool-Aid and believing that this thing is going to become digital gold and go up to $1 gajillion someday, because quite frankly, I don't see it, right? people automatically assume, well, it's putting a new all-time high, so that you can't possibly find bearish scenarios. But that's bullshit, right? You can find bearish scenarios in any market, just like you can find bullish scenarios if you look for them, right? But I just tend to wonder if a whole lot of people aren't going to be real sad when this thing ends up playing out something like silver, right? Silver had an all-time high in 1980, basically bottomed out, got accumulated, pumped up, had a new all-time high in 2011, just took out the old all-time high. Everybody's super happy about silver, and the next thing you know, silver crashed 72%, right? Last year, I used the silver chart as a fractal to help predict the move down to 4K, and I'm not so sure that Bitcoin is not here, right? It's absolutely possible that's what Bitcoin is doing, and that Bitcoin is going to have a major pullback after this, and then go through a period of accumulation at much lower prices. Real quickly, looking at the silver chart, I would tell you to be very mindful of where silver just pulled back to, right? Down, up, right to its golden pocket. I hold silver. Silver is one of the investments I hold long term, meaning for decades. So same thing. I don't have a reason to be bearish. I'm just saying, silver doesn't look great right now either. Not a whole lot looks great right now. Okay, it's a weird environment that we're in. Very weird environment that we're in. So we'll see how silver plays out. But yeah, overall, on the smaller time frames with Bitcoin, I personally plan on sitting back and letting the dust settle, seeing where this year ends at. This is the yearly candle right here. Seeing if we do get some type of big capitulation type of wick. And if we do, then perhaps I'll start looking for some type of positional shorts. But right now, I'm really just waiting. The shorts that I am taking, they're all on small time frames where I'm trying to get in and out within a few hours. I'm not trying to write anything down. This candle certainly looks bearish, but there's a couple hours left in the day. Same thing. This candle looks, this doesn't look as bearish, but a couple hours left in the week. This could easily pump back up and absorb that, wick. And same thing on the month, a couple of days left in the month. So really, we just got to wait. We got to wait and see where these things close at. All right. If you go look at Grayscale real quick, they have a very large capitulation wick going on. So, if they do start capitulating and people start selling, that could carry over into crypto. It's really difficult to say how much of an impact this actually does or does not have. But I do think it's something you should keep an eye on, just like I think the CME is something you should keep an eye on. All right. All that being said, the video is now 30 minutes long. That's too long. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up there. Please remember, I am just some guy sitting in a spare bedroom, which means that nothing in this video is financial advice. You should always do your own due diligence and seek out professional financial advice from a licensed financial advisor, which I'm not, before making any type of investment in cryptocurrency, the stock market, or precious metals. If you enjoyed the video, be sure and give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to check the description for links where you can support the channel, as well as join Patreon and join my trading course if you'd like to learn my proprietary trade setups that, by the way, work not just in crypto, but also other markets as well, like Forex and the stock market. This is James with Crypto Common Sense, reminding you to please trade safe.